Do you struggle with school? Are you a parent of a middle school or high school student who is really having a difficult time keeping up and staying organized? Well, you're in luck because today we are going to cover part two in a four-part video series called Succeed at School here on Get Organized with Jodi. Hi, I'm Jodi Granock. I'm a certified professional organizer with over 15 years in the field. And I love working with students who are middle school and high school age to help them succeed at school. If you're not organized, you can really struggle with school, particularly with your grades. This is part of a four-part video series designed to help middle schoolers and high schoolers be more successful at school by using organizing techniques. In our first video, which you can click on the link to up in the upper right-hand corner, we talked about how to organize your paperwork at school, all those notes and handouts and assignments and reference material, how to have a good system for that paperwork and keep it organized, and not just the first few weeks, but the entire year. So if you haven't had a chance to check out that video, I encourage you to do so. But today we are talking about part two. This video is going to focus on two areas of school life: your backpack and your locker. So let's start with talking about your backpack. Your backpack really has two main functions. Get your stuff from your house to school and get that stuff from school back to your house. And that's pretty much it. Now, depending on what school you go to, there are rules about where your backpack can be. A lot of schools have a rule that you're not allowed to bring your backpack with you to class, and it needs to stay in your locker. All the more reason to make sure your backpack is organized. I wish we had had that rule when I was in school because we all had huge backpacks and it was a trip hazard to go up and down an aisle in the classroom and not trip over someone's bag. So here's the thing about your backpack. It has a lot of different compartments, most likely, and you want to separate your backpack into different zones based on the size. You're going to have some smaller compartments, you're going to have some larger compartments, and it's really important to utilize those spaces properly. If you have really small items, like pens, for example, you want to contain them to make it easier to find. So you might use a pouch or a mesh bag. What you don't want to do is just throw those small items loose into your backpack, because not only does it make it harder to find, it makes it more likely that it could break or get crushed. I've seen many students have their pens break apart and leak ink all over everything in their backpack. So give it a little protection, give it a little bit more visibility, and contain those small items. I personally, to this day, still carry a pouch that has all my writing instruments in it. It has my Sharpie markers, my highlighters, my pens. It even has a second zipper pouch where I put all my little Post-it notes. So anything I need for writing in my calendar, I know it is contained in that one bag that I can throw into a work bag, a backpack, or a purse. And I can always find it. So here are some ideas of things that you might want to store in a bag like that because it's a smaller item. So as we mentioned, pens and pencils and different writing implements. You might want to have a bag that just has your makeup in it, or that has your cords and chargers for any of your electronic gadgets. You may want to have a bag that has some snacks in it. These are all things that can easily get lost in a backpack or a purse, and so it's good to contain these smaller items. Now, another secret to success with your backpack is you want to make sure that you clean it out every weekend. You can actually make this a family project. You can say, let's say that your family always has Sunday dinner together. So you could say right after dinner, everybody comes in the living room with one of their bags. Students might bring a backpack. Maybe you bring your sports bag or your gym bag. You might bring your purse. You might bring your work bag, parents. Whatever the bag is, go ahead and empty it out completely and look through and go, oh, whoops, here's a tissue I don't need, or here's a wrapper to my snack and I threw it back in my bag. So just go ahead and reset your bag, whatever kind, every weekend. And that keeps you from things getting too far astray. The other thing I want to mention is that you really want to think about the location of where you're putting items. So obviously you can't put your very large math textbook in the tiny front part of a backpack. I mean, obviously you have to put it in the big section. But these smaller items that we're talking about, you can see that they would fit in these smaller front sections. But if you throw them in the larger part of the bag, not only is it harder to find, but you may be taking up valuable space that you need for larger items. So whenever you can, put smaller things in smaller sections. And no matter what you do, please do not put your beverages inside your backpack. I've seen that happen one too many times where someone's soda exploded all over their textbooks and notebooks. Most backpacks will give you a side pouch, and it's perfect for putting your beverages. All right, let's talk about your locker at school. The main reason that you have a locker is to reduce the amount of stuff you need to carry around during the day so you don't have horrible back pain. But you still need to organize your locker because you don't want it to look like the photo here on the right. I remember in middle school, I did not want to go to my locker at the same time as my next door neighbor, the guy that had the locker next to me. I call him my next door neighbor, because it was always kind of a death trap. When he would open his locker, things would come flying out or tumbling down, and I did not want to get hurt. I didn't want him to get hurt either. So you need to organize your locker. You don't want it to be a bad game of Jenga. You don't want anyone to get hurt, and you certainly don't want to lose track of what you're carrying. So instead, you want to sort your locker into zones so that you could separate your school books from your after school gear, like your gym stuff, and from your lunch and from any personal items that you might have. So you can do this in a variety of ways. You can have magnetic hooks where you can hang things inside the locker door. Again, you can go with small things. Maybe you have a little bag that has a ring on it for your pencils and pens. You might put your keys there so you don't lose track of those. The photo here is a picture of a vertical storage product. This is a locker shelf, and there's actually two locker shelves clipped together here. So lockers are notorious for not having a lot of horizontal storage, right? They're tall and skinny. So you got to go vertical. You got to go up. If you have a high shelf that's near the top of your locker, you could still use that shelf, but make sure that you put the items up there in some kind of basket. I have seen students put their lunch up there, for example, and let's say that their lunch bag tips over and an apple rolls out. And you didn't realize that you brought an apple for lunch. Maybe your parents packed your lunch for you. And you're not going to find out that you had an apple that day until weeks later when there are bugs flying around your locker. It's kind of gross. So if you have a basket up there instead and you reach up and grab the basket and bring it down, then at least you know everything is contained in that basket, because those high shelves are notorious for not being able to see what's up there. So use a basket. So here's the ideal way to keep your locker organized. Try to visit your locker 3 times a day. I know it can be hard based on your school schedule and how big your school is and where things are located, but ideally, you want to go to your locker first thing in the morning when you get to school, empty your backpack, and grab all the things you need for your morning classes. Leave your afternoon supplies in your locker. Then make sure you go to your locker at lunchtime. And at lunchtime, you'll put your morning things back in your locker and you'll take out all the things you need for the afternoon. That way, you don't have to carry everything for the whole day with you all day. And then the third time you go to your locker is at the end of the school day. And at that point, you would take your backpack and just put the things that you need to take home with you in the backpack, pack it up, and go home. And just like we said about your backpacks, every Friday you should plan on cleaning out your locker. Just do a quick sweep, make sure that you don't see any loose papers, any clothes, any leftover food. Make sure you throw that on your backpack and bring it home. And if you do that in combination with cleaning out your backpack every weekend, you should be good to go. Now, you may notice that I didn't really talk about loose papers in your locker in this photo, and there aren't loose papers ideally in your backpack. If you watched the first video in this series, you would know that you shouldn't have any loose paperwork because it should all be contained within one of your systems. But by covering what we are today, it's a series of checks and balances, right? If you're checking your locker every Friday, you're checking your backpack every weekend, these are the ways to make sure if you did have some loose paperwork that didn't get into your paper system, that's your chance to refresh that as well. So that's it for backpacks and lockers. I hope you find this helpful. Stay tuned for video number 3. In the meantime, I encourage you to visit organizingmagic.com for more organizing resources, including our free e-newsletter and information about our monthly Zoom webinars, which are also free. And remember that new videos drop every Friday. So be in the know and click like and subscribe before you go, so you never miss a single video. I'll see you next time.